Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, so today we're diving into a genuinely fascinating topic. For literally centuries, right, across countless cultures, reaching heaven or, achieving spiritual ascension has been painted as this totally arduous, almost impossible climb. We're conditioned to think it requires a lifetime of agonizing struggle. But what if it doesn't? Well, today we're unpacking a 2009 text by author Sufeng, and it's called It Is Actually Easy to Reach Heaven. Right off the bat, that title is a total game changer, challenging absolutely everything we think we know about spiritual progression. Before we get into the how, let's just take a step back and look at the why. Is reaching heaven really that complicated? Because historically, according to the source material, humanity has painted this grand, sweeping, and frankly, totally overwhelming picture of salvation. We're talking about incredibly profound esoteric metaphysics that literally take a lifetime to decode, strictly following all these intense rules and precepts, dazzling cultivation methods, epic battles of the soul, and just endless silent research. It's a majestic journey, sure, but it kind of makes the whole endeavor feel like climbing Mount Everest completely without oxygen. And this is where Xu Feng drops a massive paradigm shift. The text says, and I quote, "In fact, going to heaven is very easy and simple. It is humans who have complicated it and made it seem difficult." Wow, the author is emphatically stating that all those centuries of complex theology and rigid rituals, yeah, that's entirely on us. The argument here is that the true path to reaching heaven isn't some intricate maze at all. It's actually a remarkably straight line that we humans have just completely tangled up into knots over the years. So let's look at this core conflict presented in the text. On one side, you've got the human way. This represents our absolute obsession with profound metaphysics, dazzling cultivation practices, and strictly enforced rules. It's heavy, right? It's super intimidating. But then, on the flip side, we have the heaven way, which is described purely as easy and simple. The author draws a really sharp line in the sand here. If you're struggling through these impossibly complex frameworks, you're actually stuck on the human-made path. Now, to prove this point, the author doesn't just leave us floating in abstract theory. Xu Feng introduces a very specific baseline, calling it the 1,000-year world of heaven. According to the text, this is the specific realm of heaven that is physically or spiritually closest to our human world. It's used as the super practical, grounded example to show us just how accessible crossing that spiritual threshold truly is. Okay, so here's the million-dollar question. How exactly do we get into this 1,000-year world? What's the secret code? Well, it all boils down to one number: 8. That's literally it. The text outlines exactly 8 straightforward points required for entry. We're not talking about a 1,000-page manual or decades of agonizing study. Xu Feng guarantees that mastering just these 8 points gets you in. It completely shifts our focus from the highly mystical to the incredibly practical. We can actually divide these 8 points right down the middle. First up, we've got your internal mindset. This involves revering and firmly believing in God with genuine gratitude, as well as holding a deep reverence for life and nature. It also means rolling up your sleeves and eradicating toxic traits, things like jealousy, resentment, and selfishness, plus making a firm promise to never, ever hinder anyone else's happiness or freedom. The biggest takeaway here? Shefeng completely replaces those intense esoteric rituals with just, foundational human decency. Moving on to the second half of the list, we focus on your external actions. This means practicing absolute kindness in your heart, your words, and your deeds. It's about being completely 100% honest. You also need to be diligent, which actually means keeping your physical environment, like your living space, clean and harmonious. And finally, being trustworthy and keeping your promises. What's so mind-blowing about this is how everyday these actions are. In this framework, your ticket to heaven literally includes honoring a basic business contract and making sure you clean your bedroom. But honestly, just as important as what you must do is what you definitely do not need to do. We are emphatically crossing out all those intimidating traditional practices people usually associate with enlightenment. According to Zofeng, you absolutely do not need to study profound knowledge. You don't need to adhere to incredibly strict precepts, no mandatory Zen meditation or Qigong, and no obsessing over accumulating merit. All that heavy spiritual lifting, the text basically says you can just let the whole shebang go. Now, you might be wondering, surely some people have a head start, right? Well, the text argues otherwise. Emperor or commoner, whether you're the person ruling an entire nation or just an everyday citizen, you stand on the exact same footing. what about a billionaire versus an illiterate wanderer? Yep, same deal. A leading magnate with all the money in the world has absolutely zero advantage over someone with empty pockets and no formal education whatsoever. Doctor, highly accomplished monk, or a rural villager, it doesn't matter. All that professional expertise and esteemed religious status, it holds absolutely no special weight over a simple villager living quietly up in the mountains. To really drive home this ultimate equalizer, the text states it explicitly. Regardless of your beliefs, your deep knowledge, your physical appearance, or even how long you live, absolutely none of your worldly attributes matter. If you can just achieve those 8 simple mindsets and behaviors we talked about, you are in. Boom. It is a radical, and I mean radical, reset of how human achievement is valued in the grand scheme of things. So let's wrap our heads around this incredibly egalitarian view of spiritual ascension. Under what the text calls heaven's standard, everyone is perfectly equal. There are equal opportunities across the board. There is absolutely zero distinction made based on how you lived your earthly life, and there is no VIP fast pass lane for anyone. It is presented as a completely 100% level playing field. Which brings us to the end of our explainer today, and it leaves us with Xu Feng's exact final question. In the standards of heaven, everyone is equal. Fair, aren't they? I really want to leave you to deeply ponder this super refreshing, accessible perspective on spirituality. If reaching heaven really just comes down to foundational decency, honesty, and kindness, well, how does that change the way you view your own daily actions starting right now? Thank you so much for joining me, and keep exploring.